Keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for. In good times, in bad times, I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for. Play the harmonica, Stevie. All right, welcome to the RBN Roundtable on Revolutionary Blackout Network. So good to see all of you here on this Thursday evening. I am one of your hosts, James. So good to have you here. Sabby, Nick, my sister and my brother from another mother. Good to see you both today.
What's going on, JB? What's going on, Nick?
Hey, what's popping? It's always great to be among RBN family, JB and Savvy Savs. This is one hell of a week. Yesterday we had the post duopoly show. Rome joined us as well. So now we get the post duopoly show and RBN Roundtable back to back, fam. What a time to be alive. What's popping, my friends?
I'm gonna quote Nick right now. Banger after banger. I love it.
After banger.
Yep, definitely. By the way, I don't know. This is just an aside. Sabby, Nick, you both look like really well rested. Like you guys have just came from a spa. I'm just saying.
That's come from you looking sexy as hell right now.
I was about to say, because I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Nick, did you get a lot of sleep?
I actually got back. I'm always more energized after I train. Like that's why I always advise people. Like when you actually work out, you get more energy. That's probably why, because like you get more. I feel more energized after I work out. That's probably why.
Yeah, maybe it's post-workout glow, JB.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't got to work out. That's why I'm wired on T right now. But with that being said, we're gonna say hello. I'm just gonna say a blanket hello to everybody. Before we get that, we gotta do the house cleaning things. Thank you so very much, Zoya.
Zoya's love, Zoya's life. Big shout to her, man.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to get ahead of you, JB. I just saw James here with the super stick. I'll pass right back to you. But James, big shout out to him. I met him in Chicago. James is such a great guy. OG, organizer. I have a lot of love for James Stark, so I had to give a personal shout out to him. So, James, I'll pass it back to you.
The organizers are the homies. That's what it is.
Bro, James is the homie for real. He's a legit. Yeah. He's a legit dude, man.
Yup. All right. So if you guys have not already, please go ahead and give a like to the stream. If you like what you're seeing already, if you guys want to wait till the end of the stream, that's fine too. But just letting you know, you're gonna like what you see. You're gonna like what you hear. Also, if you guys have not, you guys can join our mailing list at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. This gives you email notifications whenever we go live. And so then you'll never miss out on whenever we do actually go live. And also, if you guys have any stories or any type of encouraging words or anything that you would like to deliver to us as far as messages, you guys can email us at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. So, why are we here today? Well, we are going to be speaking with Keyan Bliss from Move to Amend, and also we're going to have Margaret Kimberley joining us in about 25 minutes from now. So, and then Rome will be in shortly as well. And so this is what we wanted to talk about, because I wanted to get into not just talk about the issues and the problems that's happening in this country, but I think it's good for us to talk about solutions. So I would like to introduce to the stage Keyan Bliss with Move to Amend. Keyan, is so good to have you with us.
Welcome, Keyan.
Thank you all so much for being for inviting me on here. Really excited to talk with y'all.
Thank you for joining.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's great to have you because, you are part of Move to Amend. And, a lot of people have pretty much gotten a bit of a taste of what you are about in the title of our show, as corporations are not people. So if you can give us just a brief synopsis of what Move to Amend was, how the idea came about, and what type of actions you guys are taking to actually push to get money out of politics.
Definitely. So just a quick overview in my own words with Move to Amend. Move to Amend has began as just 12 people gathered in a living room in California back in the fall of 2009, which was just a few months before we launched our campaign on January 21st, 2010, which was the day that the Supreme Court handed down its decision in Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission. As of today, we are a growing grassroots coalition of over 500,000 people and continuing to grow every day. And while a lot of organizations have risen to, rightly overturn Citizens United and advocate against the excessive amount of wealth that just recently bought the presidency in this last election cycle. The root of the problem really goes back long before 2010. In fact, for more than 130 years, the Supreme Court has made a series of decisions that have extended inalienable constitutional rights that were traditionally assumed to be for human beings to for-profit corporations and other artificial entities, particularly under the First, Fourth, Fifth, and 14th Amendments. And we have, as long as corporations are considered persons with the same inalienable human rights and their political spending is considered protected speech as you and me, they'll be able to assert their rights better than any real human being or communities just through sheer concentration of wealth, which we're seeing in real time as it stands right now. So together, our coalition drafted and supports the We the People Amendment, which is currently in Congress as House Joint Resolution 54, and it's the only proposed amendment to the Constitution that would address these court-created doctrines of corporate constitutional rights, also known as corporate personhood, and money equals speech, which are the very foundations of the corporate rule that we're grappling with today. So the key principles, I'm happy to go into the key principles, but just to kind of lay that out right there for you, in case you had any questions.
Okay, thank you so very much. Let's go to the website really quick because I just want to make sure that I share your website first as well. So this is movetoamend.org. I will also be putting the link in the description, in the chat for you guys as well. But this talks about Move to Amend. And basically it's talk about ending Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. And I'm assuming this also goes into like repealing different laws, different precedents like Buckley versus Vallejo and other ones that actually gave more power to the corporations. This kind of goes into also the Powell memo that Lewis Powell, who was a Supreme Court justice, has written. Shout out to Roger Meadows for helping me get educated on that one. As far as the legislation is concerned, and I know this is kind of a heavy question to ask first, but what steps are made to get the money out of politics with the present corporate duopoly that we have that really is feeding off of that notion of corporations being people? You look at people like Barack Obama, who had a lot of corporations that backed him. Then you also look at Donald Trump, who had a lot of corporations that backed him. And then you look at Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. So in what ways is there that we can actually fight against them while appealing to a party that really would look at an organization like Move to Amend with disdain? You're muted.
Yeah.
Sorry, my apologies. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. I mean, just to be clear, I mean, for Move to Amend, we don't consider ending corporate rule to be just a political issue. Like, this is a human rights issue that intersects with every struggle for justice happening today. And that, most importantly, the struggle for our basic right to self-governance, which, this is one of the reasons why the We the People Amendment has support from people all across the political spectrum. It has support from not just Democrats, but Republicans, Greens, Libertarians, and Independents alike. And it's because although people of different political perspectives and parties and ideologies frequently have different positions on certain policy proposals, it's not about policy for the We the People Amendment. It's really about the principle of self-government, because if we or the people are to govern ourselves, then we should have equal say and equal access to the political process, which, as we've seen from the current 2024 election cycle, that's not the case. People with more money, like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg of the world, have an outstanding influence on our political process, and literally bought the presidency for a low price of just $250 million, essentially. And that's one of the reasons you see polling whenever asked about the question of should we have regulate money in our electoral processes, or on the ruling of the Citizens United case, for instance. A 2010 poll back then said Democrats, Republicans, and Independents over 76% opposed the ruling. And why consistently polls show among Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, overwhelming majority view the special interest lobbying and election spending in our political system unfavorably. I mean, it really comes back to the basic promise of self-governance. And as long as, as I mentioned before, corporations can afford to assert their rights, their interests better than any human being or our communities, simply through the sheer concentration of wealth. And even if we don't agree on necessarily the approach or tactics per se to that, I mean, it's at the end of the day, if we're going to get rid of this excessive amount of money that's that's providing undue influence of our political processes, our solution has to be comprehensive enough to leave for no loopholes. And that's why the We the People Amendment is very specific about really addressing the core roots of Citizens United, which is HJR 54, the We the People Amendment, makes clear two key principles. Corporations are not people, which means that constitutional rights are reserved for natural persons or human beings only, and that legal rights of artificial entities like corporations, unions, even nonprofits that a lot of conservatives can be distrustful of, and other limited liability organizations will be subject to regulation by the people through our local, state, and federal laws, which is what it used to be. And it would be recognized, and any rights that we do extend to corporations would be recognized as privileges that are neither inherent nor inalienable, like our First Amendment right to free speech. But it also, and the second key principle is that money is not speech, meaning that raising and spending of money in elections would no longer be construed as a form of protected political speech, and that the regulation of campaign financing and political spending would actually be a duty of local, state, and federal governments, so that we can ensure that all people, regardless of how much wealth they have equal access to the political process, and that no person gains a substantial advantage, such as Elon Musk, over the political access to our elected officials based on their wealth. And it will also require all political contributions to be publicly disclosed, because at the end of the day, everybody, regardless of our political persuasion, wants to know who's how much money is going into which candidate, which party, which campaign, and so that we can really see who is actually has a say and who is influencing the process.
Yeah, under a capitalist mode of production, it's very important for capitalists to infiltrate the government and make it as weak and ineffective as possible. As a capitalist, you need to infiltrate the government and make the government weaker than the corporations and the capitalist class. This is where the root of corruption starts from. Whenever you have a centralized power that is weaker than the oligarchs, in our situation, that's the capitalist oligarchs. This breeds distrust. That's when you know the government is not working for you, it's working on behalf of the ruling class. And when you see the massive pouring of money in politics, and when you see also the courts who have been hijacked, also by the capitalist class, who's willing to transfer the political power to the corporations. That is what it is when they say you can have unlimited money in politics. That's a corporate capitalist coup, and it is class war designed to minimize and silence the voices of the working class. You just mentioned how this is why I try my best, and this we post duopoly to avoid getting to red-blue nonsense, because even when you look at a lot of the red voters, they support ending money in politics. You know what I mean? A shocking amount of Republicans are very progressive. Like I saw a poll, 1 out of 3 Republicans support single payer, which is actually, I think it's pretty astounding. Like 1 out of 3, that's a lot. But the whole point is to suppress those voices and have people vote on cultural war issues. And I want to ask you this question because you guys have been working on this for some time. I want to ask you to share your experience regarding the pushback you received from the ruling class. I can only imagine that throughout your journey, and I'm asking because I'm curious, that this has not been smooth sailing. Like I can only imagine the capitalist retaliation that you have faced. So do you mind sharing your experience going up? Because this is a big challenge. Like, because what you're doing is directly challenging the what I just explained, the capitalist corporate coup. So what has your experience been like going up against this massive amount of power, which we know never concedes without any struggle? So what are your thoughts?
I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, if you're like, the fact that have as much about Move to Amend as you do, just from like searching online, like it like really speaks testament to how effective we've been able to be, even as a grassroots coalition. That's just like we don't get big foundation money. In fact, one of our core principles is maintaining our political and economic independence so that we can avoid the quid pro quo and go forth unencumbered by partisan politics. That is oftentimes rooted in the wealthy corporate capitalist class and their funders. And one of the things that we've been that we've really run up against is just this media black wall, because like look at corporate owned news media, the 24/7 news cycle from CNN to MSNBC, Fox News, CBS. Everything that we read, watch, and listen to, 90% of which is controlled by just 5 mega corporations. And a lot of times they're not talking about, like when they talk about Citizens United, they're only focusing in on the money and politics aspect, if they pay lip service to it at all. But no one ever really talks about the corporate constitutional rights doctrine of the Citizens United decision, which is really the most insidious portion of that. Yeah. And we have over time, we have been able to break through to local media. Newspapers, writing op-eds and whatnot, and getting interviews at the local level. But when it comes to the national level, a lot of people ignore us or just pretend like we don't exist. And then when we go into the halls of power out in Congress or even at the state level, a lot of the pushback that we tend to receive is like all these slippery slopes about like, oh, but what happens if corporations don't have the rights to protect their shareholders or whatnot? And it's like, I think they're doing just fine. They've been able to be successful and maintain multi-billion-dollar businesses that have created generational wealth that the vast majority of the country, particularly Black and Brown Americans, have yet to even come close to enjoying or keeping up with. So while they oftentimes prioritize the what might happen if corporations no longer have the same free speech rights as you and me, we're more concerned about what is happening right now with communities that at the mere threat of a multi-million-dollar corporate lawsuit caves to those interests for things like basic clean water or clean air policies and whatnot, and sees their elected officials just kowtow to those interests based on just the sheer threat of throwing their wealth at them.
I love how you bring up, and Sabby, I'll pass it right to you, but I love how you bring up the media blackout, because I mentioned that if you dislike the media, you don't hate them enough. The American people don't hate the media enough, and they play a giant role in crushing movements, which is why we infiltrate the media, right, Sabby and James? Because the people, the proletariat, the working class, we need to separate ourselves from the culture and the society that the fake capitalist class made, even separating ourselves from their media. That's why we started RBN, right, was to have working class reporting, working class journalism that uplifts organizers. That's why we have general strike summits, have Palestinian roundtables. I have another one coming up in a few weeks. It's very important for us to establish our own method of communication, because why doesn't Rachel Maddow, for example, have you on and challenge this issue? Why didn't Joanne Reed, someone who was credited as being pro-Palestine, why did she have Palestinian roundtables? It's almost silly to ask because you can't even expect them to do that, which is why I started this. Which is why we do this, because it's very important for us to put the media in our hands. So, Sabby, I know you want to chime in. I'll pass it to you, my sister.
Oh, well, just one of the things I want to show people on the website, because I thought this is pretty interesting. The joint resolution, if people haven't had a chance to look at it, the joint resolution here, one of the things that stands out to me at the end of section 2, it says, the judiciary shall not construe the spending of money to influence elections to be speech under the First Amendment. So there's 3 sections to this. So this is kind of like a 2-part question that I have for you here, Keyan. The first part is, what about having another section that, explicitly states that the sole funding of elections needs to be grassroots donations? And I asked that question because as long as corporations, billionaires are allowed to fund these elections, that in there lies the problem, right? So it's not like there are a number of politicians in Congress that had grassroots campaigns. Bernie Sanders had a grassroots campaigns and raised a lot of money just off of the grassroots. I want to get your opinion about that, about explicitly stating that, because I could see some loophole being established here to where they can point to this and say, well, you didn't have that in the amendment, that it had to be grassroots funded. So that question, 1. And 2, I noticed like some of the people that have signed on for this, it looks like Pramila Jayapal is the lead sponsor for this amendment. I also see Ro Khanna, AOC have signed on. A number of people, Nadler has signed on for this amendment, but they don't talk about this enough. So to your point about corporate media, Pramila Jayapal has been on corporate media multiple times. Like she's been on MSNBC, she's been on CNN. I never hear her bring this up. So those people who signed on for this amendment, they should be promoting this heavily, I would say, every time that they appear on corporate media, and not just answer questions about what the Democratic Party needs to do to win. So I think that's another part of that, is that a lot of people don't know about this because the people who signed on for it are not elevating it. I know when Ro Khanna came on to RBN, he came onto my channel, there just seemed to be this idea that, well, if you want to know how people feel about things, all you have to do is look up said, legislation and see who's sponsoring it. But the reality is the average American doesn't have time to do that. The average American is working. I know people that work 2 jobs. They just don't have time to look these things up. And sometimes these bills can also be very confusing if you're not familiar with how the political process works. So I think it is on them to promote this. It's on them to really get this message out there and to get that across to the people. And I think that's part of the reason why more people may not be aware. But what do you think about that point there about adding something that explicitly states that these campaigns can only be funded publicly, which is how it is in some other countries?
I mean, that's a really good question, and one that we've definitely grappled with over the course of the last 15 years going into this year is, the We the People Amendment is one of just several proposed amendments that have been introduced over the years since Citizens United. And one of the things that that distinguishes us is that none of the proposals address both of the court-created doctrines of corporate constitutional rights and money equals speech in the same amendment. It either addresses one or the other, which generally allows for which, if we only did one or the one versus the other and left that out, it would ultimately allow for corporate power to reassert itself in one way or another, and just kick the half of the problem further down the road for the next generation to solve. And I don't think it needs to be stated, but passing an amendment to the Constitution is extremely tough. I mean, we've only had 28 amendments, or 27, 28 amendments in the last few years that have even come up within that, 27 that have actually passed. And the language has to be proportionate enough to win, and there's no room for half solutions or ambiguity. But they're at the same context, we also can't make it so narrow as to create those certain slippery slopes that can come up with it. Like, we don't want to make it so prescriptive that in a few years there may need to be like updates to it. Like, if we want it to be very clear about what about the core root of the issue. The reason that we don't have public financing of elections isn't like just because it's not politically popular. In fact, it's like, I think like the vast majority of people across the spectrum want to see that. It's really because based on the power of not just the Republican Party, but also the Democratic Party that enjoys a two-party monopoly or duopoly, if you will, over the current political process. And they've used that they've used that to great effect to maintain their status on power and in order to help continue to segregate populations and essentially create smaller populations that are easier for wealthy owners to control and exploit. It's really not a matter of why not put this within the Constitution itself. We want to avoid the common arguments or reframes that we're going to expect from these people that are holding currently the monopoly on power, that are going to say this is too overloaded. There are too many unintended consequences. If we were to amend the Constitution to make clear corporations are not people and money is not speech, it levels the playing field and opens the door for us to have even deeper conversations about what a real participatory democracy actually looks like, where money is not a factor within that conversation. So that opens up the conversation of why don't we have public financing of our election processes? Why don't we become a multi-party democracy rather than just like a two-party democracy? And ensure that as many parties as is desired can participate as unequal players. As it stands right now, the reasons that we're not having these conversations is because those with the most money who are backing both political parties don't want to have that conversation. Again, and it comes back to it, as long as their money is considered protected political speech and their corporate entities are considered persons as you and me, they can just keep asserting that over and over again. So it's really important. Whatever the proposal or strategy has to go, this is going to be a tough battle. I keep telling people, the fight isn't getting the amendment passed. The fight is what comes after, because there's with every revolutionary action, there is an equal and opposite counter-revolutionary backlash that we have to anticipate. So whatever the 20th Amendment it has to be strong and clear enough to end corporate rule and leave for no loopholes. And we have to operate on the assumption that once an amendment comes out of Congress, we're not going to get another shot for at least another generation. So we absolutely have to get it right.
That's a good point. One more thing I wanted to add too was that I also think it's important that these politicians that signed on to sponsor this amendment, they have to stand by their word. So if they think that, corporate money is an issue, they also can't endorse politicians that are taking corporate money. And that's a big part of the problem. So you have AOC and Ro Khanna that signed on to this and Pramila Jayapal, but they all got in line and endorsed Kamala Harris, who was taking money from billionaire. So this is a big part of the problem. Like you can't serve two masters. And that's really what it comes down to. So until people see that they're really serious about what they have chosen to sponsor, there's always going to be that critique and that question.
You're absolutely right, Sabrina. I mean, it's really at the end of the day, as we're going through in this fight, we are undoubtedly within a big money political system, and these electeds that are, even as they back the amendment, they're still having to play within this process that requires them to spend 70% of their time raising money. Which is why, I've really come to the praxis of I don't trust elected officials at the words that they say publicly. I trust them at their actions, where their votes are and what they say to their constituents, directly to their constituents. When it comes to media, they could actually be speaking up more to it, and I think it would actually behoove them and the other causes that they are championing and trying to push through this current. Political climate, capitalist fascism, capitalist fascist political climate as we are experiencing. But at the same time, they're they're focusing in like really on issue silos, which is how corporate power and the minority of wealthy owners that have been able to dominate the political discourse as well as our cultural discourse for so many generations have really been masters about, like creating segregated populations that fight amongst each other, pitting us against each other along these arbitrary lines of race, sex, and class, in order to make it easy for just a handful of them to control and exploit us for our labor and our resources. And like at Move to Men, we're of the firm analysis that corporate rule and corporate, like whether you want to call it corporatism, capitalism, fascism, with whatever, it cannot exist without oppression because it depends upon throwaway classes of people who have to suffer in order to maintain the powerful, the comfort of the powerful. Which is one of the reasons why, like when it comes to strategy, we've made anti-oppression not just part of our campaign, but our campaign, centering the shared realities that the vast majority of us, despite 27 amendments that have extended constitutional protections for more people, still leave so many of us disproportionately harmed and targeted under the current system. That's particularly women of all colors, people of color, Black and Indigenous people of color, queer and trans people, immigrants, and even poor people who don't own the property levels the same way we do. So really, I mean, we have to push our elected officials to speak up to this, and sometimes it's going to require like a lot of discomforting conversations as well as call outs in those media cycles when we can get them.
Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for that explanation. Before I ask my next question, I just want to introduce the author of Prejudicial Black America and the Presidents, also part of Black Agenda Report and Black Alliance for Peace, a friend to our channel and a comrade, Miss Margaret Kimberley. So good to see you in here, Auntie Margaret.
Good to see you. You're looking great, Jay. Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much. So good.
I was like, man, we need to have Margaret Kimberley on the round table. I like, man, we need to bring Auntie Margaret here. It's great to see you.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to be back.
All right. All smiles and all. So, Keyan, one of my questions is this sounds like a really good effort. It's kind of a Herculean kind of effort, kind of a David and Goliath situation of going after the federal government in order to get money out of politics. My question is, what other avenues besides going through the federal government is Move to Amend trying to do in regards to fighting it? It may not be the direct front, but could it be an auxiliary front, either through the states, municipalities, or even through direct ballot initiatives in order to be able to get money out of politics? If we can't do it through the national level, then could it be done through state by state? I just wanted to get your synopsis on that.
Great question, actually. I mean, one of our core principles has always been coalition and movement building, because we find that integral to drawing the connections of other issues to the legal roadblocks of corporate power and money in politics. Is the power of our strategy really rests on the common ground we can find within each other and other movements, particularly at the grassroots level, to create to find that shared vision of true democracy as it exists across that. And this strategy and vision is the result of active listening, learning, talking, and evaluating together with one another. So our strategy is like a multi-pronged, multifaceted strategy. We believe that the demand for an amendment must come from a mass movement that is broad, deep, conscious, and educated. So our strategy aims to help nurture and build this movement that crosses race, that crosses generational lines, that crosses class lines, so that we are powerful enough to push it over the finish line, and then make sure that we can sustain that victory and be ready for the fight that comes after. So, for those who at home who aren't familiar with the amendment process, the Constitution's Article 5 provides for two mechanisms in the amendment process. Either an amendment can be passed through 2/3 of both houses of Congress, that's 290 House representatives, 67 senators who make the proposal, or 2/3 of the state legislatures, or 34 states, can call for a constitutional convention, also known as an Article 5 convention. Either scenario, if it goes through, if it's passed through Congress or if it's passed through states by constitutional convention, it still requires 38 states, or 3/4 of the states, to ratify what is produced, which can be done through state legislatures or local state conventions or direct votes by the people. So that's one of the reasons we have to make sure, like, we have a massive political, economic, and cultural shifts in order to win. And that starts by talking with our neighbors and organizing at the grassroots level, which is why we've been able to establish more than 150 local affiliates over the last 15 years. Not all of them are active, but like many of them are still engaged and have been doing the work to educate our public, like our local public and neighbors or whatnot, which is why polling consistently shows over 80% of Americans agree with us that corporations shouldn't have the same rights as human beings and campaign spending should be limited. We also engage in a lot of local lobbying and bird dogging of efforts with not just those at federal office, where we have, like, you know, everyday constituents doing their own lobbying without all the, like, the corporate backing that we traditionally see dominating the process, but actually, like, calling their representatives, scheduling meetings with their Congress members to talk and raise awareness about the We the People Amendment and get them on board. It's how we've been able to earn as many as 95 co-sponsors on this amendment since it was first introduced back in 2014.
Yeah, I want to get.
I'm sorry, I just have one follow-up question. You know, as far as getting them on board, what is the punishment if they do not get on board and actually actively go with it? Because, for instance, you had people like Kamala Harris that signed on, that was a co-sponsor of Medicare for All. And the thing is, like, they can co-sponsor, they can co-sign, they can do all these different things, but what is the punishment for these politicians if they do not go according to what the actual demand is? Because I don't want to be a wet blanket, but the call your congressperson and write a strongly worded letter is getting to the point where it's like, is it really effectual?
Right.
And so it's like, what are we going to do in order to put a fire really under them that will scare them more than IPAC scares them? You see what I mean? So
yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
We have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like at this state and juncture, like it's open debate whether this Constitution really even means that much to begin with. And it's like one of the things that our electeds either just don't realize or really just are trying their best to avoid and ignore is that democracies are only as strong as legitimacy and credibility they have amongst their people. So the more that we continue to see the rule of law only applied based on how much money you have, ultimately is going to diminish whether people even take them seriously in the beginning and consider to follow their laws. Which is why we've been at Move to Amend, we've been really engaging more grassroots movements that have been engaging in mutual aid networks, creating systemic alternatives to support and provide to address the needs and resources of community members, as they have been long since talking about for generations, that many that members of Congress simply have not been paying attention to. You know, we still do some resolution campaigns, and like I was going to mention before, you know, we've been able to pass over 800 local resolutions at the city and county level, 300 of which were direct ballot measures to express this. And what we can continue to do, besides just creating these crises of jurisdiction where local laws are starting to push back on what is being produced federally, is creating these alternatives ourselves with or without their permission. And mutual aid networks are one of the things that a lot of communities have been picking up on, and that we need to really be supporting and lifting up. This isn't just like I said at the beginning, this isn't a political issue for us, corporate power and corporate rule and this amendment. It is a human rights issue. And if Congress and if members of Congress at the federal level and certainly the president are refusing to actually address the basic needs and well-being of our community and respect our rights, then we need to actually just create our alternatives ourselves and do our own thing. which a lot of communities from Oakland to Boston and even in pockets of DC are already looking and doing, you know, and you'll see their reaction and how threatened they are when they start legislating against that. We kind of saw that a bit during the LA wildfires, where there were community mutual aid networks that were coming up, and people like, you know, and members of the state literally coming out and trying to not only provide those services that community members are doing, but actually like interfere and prohibit them from doing that. Arresting people and sending in the National Guard to, like, you know, like do shows of force within Black, like particularly Black and brown communities like in Altadena, as they were trying to just provide for people that had just lost everything. You know, like, we're going to see more of those reactions, but really, I mean, at the end of the day, that to me speaks to what Gandhi, the quote that, like the common Gandhi quote that he is: first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win.
Yeah, I want to get Margaret Kimberley in on this point, because one of the biggest challenges of getting money out of politics is fighting against the Zionist lobby. And this is one of the reasons why money in politics and Zionism is so insidious. And Margaret, I want to pass it to you on this, because as Americans believe we have a democracy, we have people who are not even radical, like Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush. I don't view these people as radical. I find them as youthful idiots of the establishment, but they ask too many questions. So what happened to them after they asked too many questions? AIPAC raised a ton of money and got rid of their black eyes. And then Cori Bush, after AIPAC and many Israeli lobbyists spent so much money to get her out, she criticized AIPAC, and Cori Bush explained how AIPAC is a threat to our democracy. And the reaction of the Biden administration hearing that was to attack Cori Bush and call her comments defamatory. And I love the work that Margaret Kimberley does, exposing Zionist censorship and the crimes of Israel. So I want to pass it to you, and I also want to get Keyan's thoughts on this, because I think this is one of the biggest. Obviously, there's money in politics, but then within that subgroup is the AIPAC influence, where AIPAC was openly bragging about the fact that 99 out of 100 of the Democrats that they sponsor won their primaries, openly bragging about rigging elections, which is why any money in politics is so important. So, Morgan, I want you to speak on the Zionist influence that a lot of politicians are happy to receive. And as you speak, I'm going to bring, go ahead, Morgan, and then we get Roman here soon.
Sure. Thanks so much. You know, AIPAC is not alone. Members of Congress are bought off. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. AIPAC is different only in that it's so blatant and that it is so upfront about what they do. So the people don't have a Congress. So Big Pharma has a Congress, the banks have Congress, AIPAC has a Congress. All of these interest groups buy off members of Congress, and it means that we don't have a democracy. You can't claim democracy should be more than getting to vote every few years. It's supposed to mean that the people have some role in the government with their alleged representatives. As to why Bowman and Bush were targeted particularly, AIPAC loves to get rid of Black people. They did it to Cynthia McKinney. Was almost 20 years ago, a long time ago. There was another member from Alabama. His name was Hilliard. They got rid of him that same year. And they need to make an example. Even so, they decide strategically who can they get away with. So someone who's so you don't want to get Rashida Tlaib because she's Palestinian. So that's a little too much. Yeah. AOC, you know, people think she's, I'm not a fan. I'll just put it that way. But it's problematic to get rid of her. Also, she can raise her own money, and it might not be something they can do. But Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, like most Black candidates, don't have the means to raise the amount of money that you need to fight this onslaught of money from AIPAC. So they chose them. Just in case anybody forgot who runs this town, they were chosen to get the axe. And of course, they got it. Now, Bowman also, they had changed his district lines. And Cori Bush, they got another Black person to, knife her in the back. In Bowman's district, it's a little bit of the Bronx, but it's more Westchester County, Mount Vernon, I think Yonkers, places like that. So the people who put him in were now no longer in his district. So that made it easier for him. And they got this guy who had been the Westchester County executive named Latimer, who's like 70 years old. But clearly, like most of these folks, he was ready to be back in power if they were ready to put him in. So there were particular things that made them vulnerable to AIPAC. But I hope they all get the message that even if you try to toe the line, they will get you. AOC famously said, well, who cares if you're only a one-term member of Congress, which she didn't mean. She's run for office again 3 or 4 times since. But if there were people who were really revolutionaries, not liberal, not progressive, who really had a revolutionary mindset, who really meant they're going to get rid of me, but in 2 years, I'm going to give this my all. I'm going to speak to the needs of the people. I'm going to speak out against genocide, then that would really mean something. But the system we have now, so we have, you saw this weak response to Trump's speech last week. People were holding up little paddles, like they were at an auction or something, saying you're lying. Or I can't remember what I said. It was so ridiculous. And the one guy who stood up, Al Green, all he did was shake his fist or shake his cane, and the Democrats attack him. So we have bought off cowardly politicians, and I want to say this for this particular moment. People are saying Trump is like Hitler. There are all these comparisons to 1930s Germany. He's a fascist. He's Hitler. Well, if he's Hitler, why does only one guy stand up and yell at him? So stop calling him Hitler. Stop calling him a fascist, because you don't act like you really believe it. But this is the fascism we've already had. These corporations, interest groups who own Congress, who bailed out Tesla. The Obama administration gave them huge loans. And so Musk, putting Musk on the road to being the richest person on earth. So those are my thoughts as I come into the tail end of this conversation.
Yeah, and this is why Margaret is like an honorary RBN member. I love your analysis. And I also want to bring up, as I get Keyan in here, and Rome, for when we talk about money in politics, and particularly I'm asking about AIPAC's influence. And Keyan, I want to ask you about this as well. But this is another important point to make, that you had Jamal Bowman, who was ousted by AIPAC. And this shows the declining support for Israel that the American people have. So they spend endless money to defeat Jamal Bowman. And it actually showed the weakness of AIPAC. Because back in the day, like, AIPAC didn't need to publicly flex its muscles the way it's have now. They're like, this whole thing where they're spending millions doing all these negative campaign ads. Before, they had an iron grip on Washington, they had an iron grip on the American people. So the premise behind this idea is that the fact that AIPAC even has to come out and destroy the veneer of democracy shows how weak Israel's hand is. So, Ken, I want to get you back in here, and then Rome, we pass it to you, brother.
I mean, I think Margaret nailed it spot on. I mean, it isn't really just an AIPAC. Like, I mean, this the nature of the two-party system. And I think, like, you know, it speaks to what is commonly going around on Instagram and social media channels of like the threat of liberalism and why we need to combat liberalism as we build these revolutionary movements. Because liberalism, as Margaret eloquently pointed out, you know, disarms revolutionary action and activity. There was a recent example, like during George Floyd. Remember when during the uprisings that were happening across the country, one of the largest uprisings we've seen in this current generation, we saw police officers with real power, elected officials from the left to the right, taking a knee, in the face of black people, standing up and demanding, stop fucking killing us. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, but like, stop killing us within that. And that, like, and then seeing like entire crowds of people cheering that on, you know, when like, and forgetting the message of how that goes. Like, that's how we see that within that, you know, like these performative actions in members of Congress who, you know, even those of us who are Black that make it to that level of power, oftentimes are not have no real risk of of the actual backlash that comes to it. I mean, Al Green got censured. He's cool with that. He'll be fine. And even if he were to lose office, I'm sure there's going to be a multi-million-dollar corporation that's ready to pick him up and commit and continue to pay for his bills, regardless. Same thing with AOC. Same thing with all of them. That's one of the reasons I'm very insistent about trusting elected officials at their actions, not so much the words. Words carry meaning to a great extent, but authenticity matters, and it's a lot like yawning. You know, you can't fake it, and people are hungry for that sort of instance, which is one of the reasons why we're seeing this huge backlash as we are to on both sides of the aisle. Trump didn't get there just on his gumption. You know, he didn't, and he certainly didn't have half of the population. I mean, both parties have not enjoyed more than 40% of the total adult voting age population of the United States, and Trump even less. Trump and the Republicans even less so. But he the reason that he got into power was the Democrats enabled him. You know, the Republicans weren't the ones that were that allowed genocide to be happening in the Gaza Strip on their watch when they had full offices of power, you know, they've actually, and they're doing exactly what they said they do. While Democrats keep telling us, you know, we care about your issues, we care about Palestinian rights, but can't even bring itself at their own convention in their own house to allow one Palestinian speaker who was from the delegation speak at their convention last August. And then they wonder, why did we lose the 2024 election within that? And I mean, I think it comes down to how the system is ultimately rigged against it. A lot of people don't realize that the Constitution isn't this sacred human rights document. It's actually a property rights document that only added human rights as an afterthought with the bill, the first 10 amendments. And even after it was ratified, the only persons who were considered worthy of constitutional protection were wealthy white male property owners, which at the time of the revolution was less than 10% of the population at the time. And while we made some good progress, modest changes to the Constitution 27 times, the vast majority of living human beings in the U.S. are still treated as less than human and have to fight, struggle, and even die for basic recognition of their human dignity and equal protection of their rights. While corporations, and particularly their white male property owners, have actually been able to enjoy inalienable equal protection under the Constitution longer than the vast majority of us. For example, most people don't realize that corporations, long before the 14th Amendment was applied to women, corporations were actually considered persons under the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause for almost 100 years before it was first applied to women by the Supreme Court. You know, and even at the same time as the court was recognizing, or was allowing the separate but equal doctrine to be established, they were able to apply 14th Amendment protections to corporations, as far back as 1886. So it's when we're looking at like how members of Congress are reacting in this current moment, and like why they continue to allow for these injustices to happen and enable fascist electeds like fascist politicians like Trump to take power. It ultimately is because the ruling establishment is built on protecting property rights and profit motives first, and human rights and human well-being is just an afterthought to that, if it is even considered at all.
Yeah, I want to get Roman here because Roman's joining, and then we can hear from Morgan. And I'll pass it to you, James. But Roman, I know you've been listening for a bit. Any thoughts? What's popping, man? It's great to have you back on the RBN Roundtable.
Oh yeah, it feel good to be back. Hey, Margaret. Hey, how you doing? I just want to touch on what she was saying, but history, like it or not, history repeats itself, and this is what liberals have done in Germany in the face of fascism when when the rise of fascism and Nazi Germany was on the rise. This is what the liberals of their time have done, and we got to look at them. Like a lot of people, like I know I make this tweet like once a year or something, and I say, liberalism is the reason why we have Adolf Hitler, and then the same reason why we have Donald Trump. They're the same reason why we have Barack Obama and whatever it may be. But the reason why they aren't really trying to necessarily change things is because they all agree with it. There is no like I always say, take off your 3D glasses, take off those red and blue glasses and look at it from an interscope, because all these people on a national stage, internationally, they believe in the same things, the same principles. They listen to the same corporations, whether they are paid by them or not. See, I know a lot of Bernie Sanders people say, well, he don't take corporate money and AOC don't take corporate money, but that what the fuck does that do? You don't fight against the corporations, you know what I'm saying, that you don't take money from. So what good is that? You still listen to the same people like Nancy Pelosi, who was beheld to these corporations. So yes, liberalism will always lead to fascism, and you can't find a party like the Democratic Party and be like, oh yeah, this is what we need right now, because what are they offering you? You know what I'm saying? Like what are the rights that they are saying that they're going to protect or bring back that we have lost? What rights are they codifying with the powers that they have? With the powers that they have given. What was that? The CARE Act. The CARE Act was the biggest transfer of wealth to the 1%. The biggest transfer of wealth in the 1%, and that's what they have done with their power. So it ain't that. It's basically Tom and Jerry. It's basically Tom and Jerry. But the show must go. The show must goes on. You can't kill Jerry. You can't kill Jerry, because without Jerry, you ain't gonna have a show. So Democrats, Republicans, they are all the same. And like I always say, you're gonna have to, build a movement from the ground. You're gonna have to really build a movement from the ground up in order to make sure that not only is it not infiltrated, but they are actually standing in solidarity with these people. We got our messages correct. Everybody is thinking as one. We can't have people like, oh, well, there's an AOC of the left. There's a fucking Bernie Sanders of the left, or there's a, John Kirby of the left. Like, no, we all have to think in unison, and we all have to build. True power comes from the ground. No matter all these rights that they have told you about, that they protect and that they care about, even those rights was never given to us by a party or a corporation, whoever the fuck. It was given to you by your ancestors, by the people who fought on the ground, died, bled, fought every day for unions. You know what I'm saying? They did the boycott on the buses, all that shit brought us to where we are today. The reason why we have our free speech, the reason why we have our weekend, and et cetera, et cetera. You can't look at the Democratic Party and think they're going to save you. Look, if they was going to save you, they would have done this before you was even born. They have had control over our cities for fucking generations now. I live in Detroit. They have had control over Detroit for fucking generations now, and everything is in the gutter. Everything is overpriced. Everybody is being moved out of the house because they can't afford anything. And the Democratic Party is telling you, well, they want to do something worse. They want to do you worse than what you see what we did. They want to do worse. It's not. I don't take that as well, we should get with them. I take that as a threat, you know, because with all the hurt and all the pain that Democrats have put on our people and put on our cities and whatnot, and they're telling us, hey, if you don't keep us in power, then they're going to do you worse. I take that as a threat, and I take that as them saying, hey, I'm going to release the hounds. What Mr. Burns used to say, release the hounds. Yes, they released the Republican hounds on your ass when you're not getting in line. And we got to remember, we are the majority. You guys, you know, I know it's like you see all this bullshit, and then you think, oh, this is what the American people want. The American people don't want Trump. They didn't want Biden. They didn't want Kamala. They didn't want these people in power, you know, and this is the time for us to rise up and give them what they want and answer them questions that they have been asking for fucking generations now. You're not going to move people, you know, by saying, hey, well, you know, come to the Democratic Party this time. We're gonna get you right this time. No. Generation after generation, you have failed us. And not only the Democratic Party has failed us, but capitalism has failed us all together. Capitalism has failed us all together. And I was preaching about this in jail about some black capitalists. I'm like, how can you be a capitalist when you are the capital? You know, you are the capital. You are sitting here in prison with me, you know? So capitalism has failed us. Liberalism has failed us, and it will always side with fascism because fascism is going to protect their portfolio, is going to protect their money, their assets, is going to protect their property, you know? And they always preach, oh, well, communism is going to take your house and going to take this and going to take that. Communism don't take what they don't need. We don't need your houses. We don't need, like, there are more empty houses. There are homeless people. We don't need your homes. We don't need your land. We just need to share this stuff. You know, people say, oh, well, Thanos is right. Thanos wasn't fucking right. I'm tired of people saying that shit. I watched that shit in jail. Thanos wasn't right. What he should have done, he should have snapped his fingers and got rid of all the rich and greedy people, and that way we can fucking share and the wealth fairly, you know?
Yeah.
So, yes.
JB, I want to share this, and then JB, I'll pass it back to you. I saw this, and I want to cover this because this is big in the news right now. And I also want to get Margaret Kimberley's thoughts on this, because what's happening right now, we are witnessing massive protests against the fascism that we are describing. I know we all covered, Sabi covered this, JB covered this as well, the story of Mahmoud Khalil. And this is fascism in action. This is where the Zionists get the bang for their buck with AIPAC. And what's happening right now, and I want to pass it to Margaret first, and then we go around the roundtable because this is giant news, and I want to cover this on the roundtable because we have the Jewish Voice for Peace, the quote-unquote anti-Semitic organization full of Jewish people, apparently. So you have the Trump administration that is mass arresting Jewish people right now on Trump property for standing up against the fascism of the Trump administration, who is currently making the argument, not that Mahmoud broke the law, but because his position is inconvenient to United States foreign policy. That's what Marco Rubio said, and that's the crime they are being charged with. And as I pass to Margaret Kimberley, the last thing I'm going to share in my little short presentation is how both parties enable this, because I shared this on my stream. I have to make sure I reiterate this. The Biden administration set the stage for this. I'll read this headline, and Margaret, you can take it from here. Biden administration says it can revoke visas of Hamas supporters as Republicans urge action. And I don't know that much about Mahmoud, but I haven't even seen any evidence of him being like a Hamas supporter. But Margaret, what are your thoughts on this? We can go around the roundtable. Keyan, you can chime in, Simon and James, but let's start with Margaret here.
Oh, well, this, clearly we're talking about people who have the right to speak freely. Anybody in this country has due process rights, including the rights to speak and assemble freely. So they know they can't say we're getting rid of you because Zionist groups are demanding it. Yeah. So they have to say, well, you're a Hamas supporter. Now, many people, including Mahmoud Khalil, were speaking on behalf of Palestinians. And in his case and that of others, they were asking Columbia University, in his case and other schools, to divest themselves of any corporation, any business relationships with the state of Israel. So to call them Hamas supporters is a lie. I mean, I suppose you could find somebody who said, has a card-carrying Hamas membership, but I don't think that's true. It's a cover. It's a cover to get away with what is not legal. So you have to smear people. You have to say Hamas is a terrorist organization and sanctioned by the United States, and they're Hamas supporters, and therefore the Secretary of State can say they have to leave the country. But fortunately, Mahmoud Khalil had his attorney on speed dial, and even as they were snatching him up, he was on the phone with her, and they filed a petition of habeas corpus in the wee hours of the morning, just hours later, which is why a federal judge in Manhattan has, at least temporarily anyway, stayed any order of removal. But I find it very, very dangerous that individuals with connections with the government can say, we want you to deport these people. They've been very public about it. There have been headlines about it. And I wanted to mention a comrade of mine, Dr. Helia Dutagi, who was just let go from her position at Yale. They're using AI and she has a great statement on X where you can see what she's saying. So AI connected her to Samidun, an organization which aids Palestinian prisoners and their families. But the government, the US government, says Samidun is same thing, is a terrorist organization, and she belongs to Samidun. She doesn't. So they connect her tangentially with Samidun and go to Yale. And these schools, these big schools, are chicken poop. They are, somebody said, I hope I can get this right, that these elite colleges are hedge funds with education as a side hustle. And that describes them. Some of their own board members want to have faculty fired, to have students suspended. So we have this nexus of capitalism. And I'm glad Rome brought that up. It's capitalism causing all our problems. The neoliberal university. Why do you think billionaires give money to Columbia University or to Yale? To educate us, to make us enlightened? No, to create a managerial class for them. That's their purpose. And that's why they wanted to make an example of Mahmoud Khalil. It's a very strange story. Were they so amateurish that they didn't find out he was a green card holder and not a student visa holder? I don't know. But even somebody with a student visa has due process rights. That's why they have to smear them. That's why the Secretary of State can make some statement about them being a danger to U.S. national security. This is a scandal. It is extremely dangerous. It is very important that Mahmoud Khalil not be deported. And I want to talk to you briefly about ICE. They snatch people up all the time, keep them in jail for weeks and months. I read a story about a Canadian woman who tried to enter the U.S. with a work visa of some kind. And instead of just denying her entry, she's been in an immigration jail for 2 weeks. It is, of all the cop organizations in the country, it may be among the worst. So it's very, very, very important that people keep up their solidarity with Mahmoud Khalil so that they are at least inconvenienced in their efforts to shut down and shut up anybody who is anti-Zionist.
Yeah, I'm sure ICE is a boon to the private prison industry. I'm sure there's a connection there. But Sabby, I think you want to chime in. Go ahead, Sabby, if you want to.
I was just going to say, too, this particular case made it very clear to me how many people just don't understand what a green card is and how a green card works. Yeah. People were like, he's illegal. Get him out of here. I'm like, he's a permanent resident, and green card holders do have rights. So I think there's a lot of education that still needs to be done in the United States. Like, people just don't know. And they're taking things that they hear from corporate media and they're just taking that as fact. They're not looking into themselves. Like they're not doing the research. They're not. And the reality is a lot of times people just don't have time to do the research. But it was very clear to me when this story broke, I'm realizing a lot of people don't understand the difference between a green card and a visa. And also how dangerous this can be. Some of the same people that were trying to advocate for the January 6th protesters are like, get this guy out of here. This is what we said before on RBN about the censorship. Both sides support censorship. It's just about different issues.
Right.
How is it in our interest to allow the government to define what a terrorist is? Who you can support, by the way. It's not, and Keyan, I'll pass to you. I know you want to chime in, but it is not in our interest because what they're arguing is we all have rights until the government deem you to be a terrorist. Like that's what the UK and that's what Germany is currently living through. Look at what they're doing to Richard Meadors and many journalists. They are cracking down and ruining Richard Meadors' life because he quote unquote supporting a terrorist organization. So what's happening in the West is that they can label someone a terrorist organization, anyone within your proxy, and then the second that they do that, you lose your rights. How is it in our interest, and not even just radical leftists? How is it in anyone's interest for the government to have that power? Sorry, Ken, I know you want to chime. I'll pass to you, bro.
No, you're hitting it right on. I mean, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, right? Or another person's freedom fighter. And like they know that all too well. And the reality to it is, I think like Sister Margaret Kimberley has been speaking it quite well. I mean, it's literally rooted in with how it is. I mean, liberalism, as we're talking about it in its traditional form, is the foundational philosophy for capitalism as a political and economic system. I mean, it suggests that if we guarantee individual liberties, starting with the right to private property, and allow markets and capital to expand freely, we'll all eventually have a more equal and equitable society. Which, you know, even after 2+ centuries of the current capitalist framework, I'm not feeling in a very equitable, I'm not feeling like I'm treated in an equitable basis by any means for all of the reasons that all of you are pointing out to. And one of the reasons, to Sabrina's point around why people don't know basic things like green card holders or permanent resident status things, that's not an accident. That was designed, that is by design, because neoliberalism, oftentimes executed through nonprofits designed, that are developed into containers created as a tool for capitalist owners to basically affect our local mindsets. You know, see the Ford Foundation, police and law enforcement associations, and other philanthropic organizations that spend into these hedge funds that we call publicly owned universities to influence what is and isn't taught, what is and isn't prioritized within our education, and what is or isn't covered within the media even. Ultimately leads to this level of education that we don't even know our own basic rights as it pertains. Like, a lot of people don't even understand their rights when it comes to daily interactions with law enforcement. So we end up with a population that is easy to manipulate. And I'm in a library right now trying to currently do other things. But we see these continue. Wondering why people don't really understand this. People don't know their basic rights in dealing with interactions with local government, the police, even much less ICE, because that makes it easier for us to be segregated. For those of us that have the courage or the audacity to speak out and complain or criticize the status quo as it exists, and ultimately lead to ultimately make it easier to suppress revolutionary action. I mean, I think if you read Combating Liberalism or whatnot, I mean, liberalism manifests in a bunch of different ways, but particularly, which we see a lot of times within the current political establishment, especially among the Democratic Party, which I think, if folks don't know, the political spectrum has switched so many sides. Democrats were the ones that were pro-slavery, that were pushing for the Civil War, and they've come full circle now, right, on the back to the Republican side. But liberalism at its core manifests in allowing for people who are clearly wrong, or being causing fear or chastising us when we have the gall to engage in principled argument because we're talking to an old acquaintance or a fellow community member, schoolmate, or friend, or loved one, even in order for there to be peace, even as that individual or that institution is causing individuals harm. That's one form of liberalism that we're constantly dealing with and continue to deal with. And it doesn't matter, liberalism doesn't care whether you're black or white, whether you're rich or poor. It manifests based within culture and how we are raised, which we're all as long as we are raised within the United States, we're all raised under a liberalist culture that is rooted in white supremacy, cis heteropatriarchy, and racial capitalism. To the core. So it's going to manifest in these different ways. That's why we're going to see, people like Al Green, engage in performative actions, but at no point, be at risk of, being on the oppressive end of people like Mahmoud Khalil, who are being brought up even as despite their citizenship rights. And even sharing in the other reframes of dealing with white supremacy, those of us black folks deal with on the daily basis. It's these are racist ideas. These are that are competing against anti-racist ideas, but it's also liberalism competing against that is trying to suppress revolutionary thought and action. When really we need to actually engage in principled argument. We need to really be pushing back on the status quo as it exists, because nothing's ever changed. Power has never conceded anything without a demand, right? It's one of the reasons we even have the 14th Amendment to begin with, that corporations are currently dominating and taking control of and manipulating to this extent. And we're seeing reactionary forces like the actions that are being done by AIPAC taking place because they see the writings on the wall and they're realizing they're losing a significant number, even may not be a majority, but even a significant number, which is all that it takes, a small portion of the population that is that is ready to stand up and demand transformation, not reform, which is what a lot of which is what the Democratic Party is oftentimes stands on, is just reforming the system because at one point or another the system somehow worked for the vast majority of us, which has never been the case. That is but it ultimately is fighting against transformation, which more and more people are continuing to demand, and they're making mistakes. That's why we're seeing the backlash against AIPAC the way we are. That's why we're seeing the backlash against Democrats that are have the gall to call Mahmoud Khalil a terrorist sympathizer or Hamas supporter or whatnot, and all these names being called. That's all they've got when it comes to fighting back this revolutionary thought process that's taking hold. And if you believe in the theory that it only takes about 2.5 to 3.5% of a population for a revolution to take hold, I mean, they have every reason to be terrified or scared out of their wits' end. So they're doing everything they can and making really stupid mistakes that are only sure to mobilize and bring more of us into the revolutionary fold the more that time goes on. So keep an eye out to it. It's one of the reasons we've been very consistent and firm about the We the People Amendment, being clear about these two core principles are the ones that need to be addressed, because anything less than that is just a reform. It's just tinkering with the system, when really what we need is to transform it and make sure that there is there's no path for the current dominant powers that be, which is the corporate owning class, the liberal class, can take hold and reassert their power.
Yeah, thank you so very much for that. And just one aside, I just wanted to make this statement as I was thinking about it, because a lot of times people will be talking about what the government is doing and oh my God, this is why government doesn't work, because they're even arresting people for their free speech. I'm going to make an analogy. I hope it lands. Government is like tofu. Whatever flavor you infuse it with is the flavor it's going to take on. If you infuse that flavor with capitalism, that's what government's going to take on. If you infuse it with something that is worker-centric, then that is what it's going to take on. Government has been sitting in capitalism and festering in it so long that it's taken the flavor of an economic system that thrives on money first, people last. And so this is exactly why, for instance, people like yourself, Keyan, you have to do programs like Move to Amend. This is exactly why people like Mahmoud are people who are being taken in, because he defies the United States in their pursuit of having a military base in West Asia so that they can keep an eye out on other countries so that they can extract the resources. And so this always goes back to the money. This is why we don't have reparations as those of us of American freedmen. This is why we don't have universal health care. This is why our eggs are too damn high. This is why you're having trouble paying your rent. It's because the system that we have, the government that we have, is soaking in a system and influenced by a system that it does not put us first. And so in doing so, I'm so glad that you were here, Keyan, to talk about this, because this means that we're going to boil it out and then use that tofu and infuse it with a worker-centered system so that when you taste it, it actually tastes good and it's actually healthy for us. And so I just want to thank you for that. If you guys have any last comments, because I'll be going on the super chats right now because I know everybody has a hard out at 6:30. Any last thoughts? I would like to start off with Margaret Kimberley, and then we can move on to Keyan.
Yes, thank you all. It's great to be here. There are two words we need to remember.
Your sound is a little off.
Oh, is it? Can you hear me better?
Okay,
I'll just
try to refresh. Margaret, just refresh your page and try to come back, and may fix yourself doing that. Let's go, Keyan, and then Margaret will chime in after him.
Yeah, I really appreciate this conversation, y'all. Taking the time to talk with me and have me on the show. I mean, I'm a firm believer of what the name a quote of Claudia Dela Cruz. Political education is a process to understand the power relations that shape the world we live in and how to change them. And that's what these conversations that's why these conversations are so important. It's one of our core principles at Move to Amend is a dedication to political education, because political education is an ongoing necessary process to absorb the lessons of history and the successes or failures of past people's movements in order to move forward to victory with intentionality. And that's why we have been really consistent about this. If we're going to winning hearts and minds and what it takes to really bring people from the sidelines or being bystanders into being active and organized participants, if we're going to do that, it really is going to come from engaging these engaging conversations, engaging in principled arguments and and disagreeing with one another to really grow that out and challenge the basic principles and cultural upbringings that we've been raised in within this current system. So we're going to continue pushing on. We have to House Joint Resolution 54 is making its way. We've got 30 co-sponsors in this current cycle, and we need another 65 original co-sponsors to rejoin on. But it's not just an amendment that's going to take this. We really need to be doing working at the local level back to building up our alternatives systems and models that do without state terror, that actually address people's needs and are led and decided by community members. Mutual aid networks, crisis response alternatives for mental health responses, so that we don't need to have armed police officers to do that. Quick builds, tactical urbanism to build out the infrastructure that's been neglected due to redlining and legacy of segregation going on. These are all things that are possible, that are already happening to be, and that's why we're seeing the forces of big moneyed interest, corporate capitalist classes reacting the way they do. The apex of our politics pushing out our elected officials like Cori Bush or Jamal Bowman, who have the courage to speak their values and stand on principle and and actually inspire more people to take action and get into the field.
Yeah. Thank you so very much. And also, Margaret Kimberley, your final thoughts.
Yes, I hope you can hear me better.
Yep, perfect.
Great. Imperialism, capitalism, racial capitalism and imperialism, those are our enemies. That's what we must fight. We must fight for a socialist future. And I'm thinking of all the issues we've touched on, and that's what's important. That will protect our lives, protect our humanity. I've been thinking a lot about how capitalism is destroying people psychologically, destroying our souls, our families, and we've got to get rid of it. So those are my final words. Thank you all so much.
Can I say two, three things? JB, you look good as hell, boy. JB look good as fuck. God damn, look at that goddamn lineup. Yeah, you look good today, boy. But
thank you, brother. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just want to say I find it funny how you can literally join the KKK. You can join terrorist organizations in America who actually hurts and harms Americans every fucking day, who terrorize neighborhoods, who have a history of being terrorists, and you are not facing deportation, whether you're a citizen or not. You can join hate groups in America, and when you stand up, it's only the time when you stand up for peace, when you stand against war, when you stand against these corporations and corruption. That's the only time when they shut you the fuck down, when they're trying to get you up out of here, deport you, or lock you the fuck away. It's just crazy how America works. When the people say no, they say yes. When we say yes, they say no. So don't look at this like, oh, well, damn, it's fucked up. No, look at it as a fight. Like they're calling you out to fight. They are literally holding your hands behind your back while their man's chin checking you in the face. And they're like, oh, well, I wish we could do something about that. No, y'all need to shake that grip and fight back, because, man, it is so crazy. You never know who might be next, you know? And this is just how it's going to go. They're going to start with protesters. They're going to take their rights, going to strip them of their diplomas, deport them, jail them, and then it's going to be you next, because who's going to stand up for you if it ain't the people who already out, who's already out there already, you know? So free all the freedom fighters and peace to the freedom fighters. And I don't know if he's a Hamas supporter, but I am, you know what I'm saying? Because I support everybody's right to resist. You know, like, you're not about to sit here, like, me not supporting Hamas is like not supporting the Black Panthers or the Young Lords of America. You know, they stood up for what was right in times that was very fucking hard to be who we are. Very fucking tough to be a leader in those days, you know, especially with the crack epidemic and all the shit going on, the CIA and taking over control of our gangs and shit like that. So fuck yes. Peace to the freedom fighters, and long live the freedom fighters. Because I'm telling you, one day you might need them. One day you might need the freedom fighters. You know, it might, like, we are looking at it from the outside in, but I'm telling you, America, you're not that far away from collapsing on yourself and needing these people who will lead a revolution, if not even a revolution, a resistance movement. So to protect your neighborhoods, protect your people, protect your communities, you know? So yes, hell yes. Long live the freedom fighters. I know we got to get up out of here. I got a thing coming up, y'all, in Chicago in a couple of months. We fundraising right now. We're gonna be doing.
I'm gonna be there too. I'm definitely coming. That's gonna be a banger, man.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to get in. Well, I got to get in contact back with Fred Hampton on the 21st, and hopefully we can do it either in front of his house or at the wall. So I'm gonna try to get a couple of Care Party members out there, RBN members out there, Black Panther members out there. So we're gonna be giving out stuff for the kids, clothes, diapers, and of course, revolutionary thought. Nothing comes free. But be looking out for that. Y'all can go on my Twitter if y'all want to help us out with that. And that's all I got.
All right, perfect. Thank you so very much for that, Rum, and thank you very much for the compliment once again. Savvy, you're going to be live at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight for your channel. What do you got coming up next?
Kid Cabello from Hardlands Media and Jamal Green, who are both Chicagoans, native Chicagoans, and still live in Chicago. They're coming on to talk about Rahm Emanuel's bid for president. So there's a lot to discuss there. They're going to tell you all the things that Rahm Emanuel did in Chicago, and we'll also get into some of the things that he did in reference to foreign policy as well. And then we have a couple other news stories.
All right. And also, Nick, what you have coming up next?
Man, I'm tired, man. Like we had banger after banger. Like we had post duopoly, we had Kid too. Kid's great, man. Big shout out to our Harlan's media. I've been very honored to be in conversations with people like Jody Brar, who I learned a lot from, who has a Communist Party in the UK. I've been very blessed to speak to Mario from Counterpoint China. I've been talking to people from all over the world, man. This RBN experience has been very enlightening. Like that's why at the end of the day, like subscribers and all that stuff don't matter. I'm in a position where I've been talking to people from all over the world, learning from them, sharpening my mind as a revolutionary. And even if you don't have a YouTube channel, I implore you to do the same. Hell, if you want to start a YouTube channel, even if you have 1 or 2 people watching, that's how I started off on. I remember JB Rome. You remember back in the day on Twitch, we used to have a few people watching. We was building this community. I advise everyone to do that, man. Like there's just more than just clicks. You know what I mean? It's a very worthwhile and wholesome pursuit. Like I learned a lot from people like Keyan and Margaret and my brother Sabi. My brother James, and my sister Sabi in Rome. So I'm taking a break. With that said, I put out a lot of content for last week. I need to live some life a little bit. I've been like really into boxing again. Like I grew up boxing. Like the Socialist MMA, my name is not just for show. I have done jiu-jitsu for 13 years. And you guys know I recently moved. And one of the problems where I used to live at, there was no jiu-jitsu gym. There's a jiu-jitsu gym like right down the block where I live at now. So my goal is to get my black belt. Like I can roll with brown belts and black belts. I never actually went through the gi system. So I'm gonna take. Hopefully, you guys don't mind. I'm gonna take a break, live life a little bit, get back into martial arts because that's been the big foundation of my life, and I feel like I've been missing that. You know, I've been carrying RBN. That's why I'm just very happy. I'm in a good place because we got JB back. JB been going through a lot. Was in the hospital. We got Rome back, and I had a lot on my plate because of that. A lot of pressure on me. So I hope you guys understand that I'm gonna take some time, live some life for at least a week or two. And I'll be back sometime in April. You know what I mean? I just gotta take a break. Hope you guys been enjoying the bangers though. So I'll pass back to the panel.
I don't think people realize how much it matters when you have a gym that's close to you.
Yeah, for sure.
It really makes a difference.
For sure.
All right. So thank you so very much. Much needed rest to you, Nick. I just want to say that this Saturday I will be having on Professor Anthony Zinkis on my channel. So we have a discussion, especially about mental health. I actually talked about mental health in class on Tuesday. I want to expand on that a little bit more on this Saturday with Professor Anthony Zinkis. So be sure to tune in for that as well. This Sunday will not be a JB show. I'll be joining Revolutionary Education Action Lead as they have their solidarity hub where they're feeding people, giving people third spaces and giving people supplies. So I'll be out there helping them doing mutual aid this Sunday. So you guys will not be seeing me there, but I will take some clips so that you guys can see what we're doing out there. We're all trying to do the damn thing. So thank you so very much to everybody. A special thank you to Keyan for joining us from Move to Amend. I also put the link in the description. And thank you so very much to Auntie Margaret for joining us today. I also put her link to Black Agenda Report in the description as well. And it's beautiful to see you guys. As for right now, I'm going to go into the super chats to do the house cleaning, and then we can end. But thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you so very much. Now, if you guys want to, so I'll place you both in the background. And then we will get to super chats really quick. I'm checking the Rumble and Rockfin really quick, just to see. And while I'm doing that, I just want to say that right now, this moment feels special. This moment feels special because all of us are back together again like VOLTRON, defender of the universe. And I'm so happy to see these beautiful, bright, melanated faces in front of me. And all y'all looking gorgeous. And Sabby looking 21 because she's been up in the gym just working on fitness.
I gotta go, but I want to say thanks to everybody about the gift cards, the grocery gift cards.
Please bring that up, please.
Yeah, thanks to everybody that donated. We met our goal. We're giving out grocery gift cards to 15 families in Boston, and we're also giving out coats too. But we already had the coats, so we didn't have to raise money for that. But thank you guys so much. We just announced it a couple of days ago. Or it seemed like a couple of days ago. Tuesday. We announced it on Tuesday, and we met the goal the next morning. So thank you to everybody that donated, and appreciate you.
Yeah, that's great news. JB, hope you don't mind if I leave the super chats to you in Rome. I have a heart out too about grabbing some dinner with some family. So I'm gonna leave the super chats to you guys. I'll just letting you guys know I'm taking a break. I'll be back in a week or two. I'm gonna live some life a little bit. And if you haven't caught up, like, dude, I'm so thankful to Zoya and the show we've been able to put together. So if you're behind, take the time to catch up on my streams. We had a lot of great conversations. The Jody Burr conversation was amazing. I learned so much about communism in that conversation. I'm still learning myself. Mario from Counterpoint China, we had a great conversation. So take the time to catch up to the library, rewatch some old live streams. Just give me some time. I'll be back in like a week or two. I got some life to live. So, but that's I'll pass to you, James, in Rome, so you guys can do super chats. I see you guys back. I will still be posting hotspots, by the way. So I'll still have hotspot videos coming up, so you get my thoughts on breaking news. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Have a good one, guys.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, so let's get to these super chats, and then we can do our house cleaning and head on out. But before we get to our super chats, I just want to thank all the patrons on Patreon for being so giving and being so supportive of us at RBN. One of the things that we try to do is not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. Of course, you got Rome doing his mutual aid that he's about to do. Nick has also been doing things on the ground as well. Savvy is about to be doing a grocery card giveaway. And then I will be on the ground this Sunday locally within my community to help my community with another mutual aid organization. It does not matter if you create a mutual aid organization or you join a mutual aid organization, as long as you're doing something for your neighbors, because this is about building workers' solidarity and dual power. You cannot be an island by yourself. And you guys allow us to be able to inform you and encourage you in doing this. So I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to every single person who's been a patron on Patreon, who has been assisting us with being able to do this work, and has been invaluable so that we can be the voice on the left that actually we can be that consciousness of the left and speak to the needs of the people, especially those of us who are marginalized, especially within this space. And guess what? You don't got a whole, how many black networks do you got?
That's not control opposition.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. So that being said, oh Lord, they left you and me together. We about to cut up. Let's get into super chats. Thank you once again, Mr. James Starks, for the $5 super chat. It means so much to us. So thank you very much. Kid from Harlan's Media was in the chat, so thank you so very much. Good to see you. You keep up the good work as well.
Yeah.
I like this from Eric T. Red. He said, this is why having clear demands is important. If you don't have clear demands, but also clear consequences for not meeting those demands, then everything just falls apart. And this is one of the things I thought about with the Black Lives Matter protests, right? Yep. Because we were like, oh, well, we want less police brutality. Okay, clear list of demands. And what do you do if they do not meet those demands? But the thing is, that never happened, right? So, yeah.
What they like to say, oh, if we don't get it, shut it down. But it's all talk. Because I ain't seen them shut down shit yet. All them protests, like, I ain't gonna lie. I've been seeing, like, some people go rogue and, some riots start, but it ain't nearly as much as it should be. And I know you people who love to defend property so much, oh, you don't have to burn down stuff. Look, your property ain't worth more than my life. You know what I'm saying? And one of our lives is worth 1,000 of theirs. You know what I'm saying? Let alone their buildings, whoever the fuck run these cities. So I think America should have been burnt down during that time or whatever.
Well, I think Che Guevara said something similar back in the past as well about property versus life. So, I mean, you're in good company there. Let's go to Mark Pugsley, who says, "For the roundtable, thank you so very much for your support. Appreciate it." This was a good one from Jonathan Toymaker says, "As Black people, we can honestly judge this nation." Absolutely, I agree. Because here's the thing. And some people are not going to like what I have to say, but okay. We as Black people can judge this nation because we have seen the worst of this nation since our arrival here.
Yeah.
Because we are victims of this nation. Women can actually judge men because of how we've been treating them.
Yeah.
Queer people can judge straight people because of how they've been treated. Disabled people can judge able people because of how they've been treated by them. The people who are the most marginalized can typically, we see the grotesques of people who have a privilege. And so therefore, when it comes to, if you really want to know about this nation, what it entails, and look at it from a clear-eyed instead of a rose-colored lens, then listen to the most marginalized people and see how they're treated. And that will tell you what this country is. And one of the things I appreciate about Margaret Kimberley's book, Prejudicial Black American Presidents, is that for Black people, fascism is a Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I was never scared of a Trump presidency, because all of my presidents was Trump. Times two, some of them, So it really don't even fucking matter, you know what I'm saying? And I know there's more people with their own fights and whatnot, but that's them for to tell their own story. We can't talk for the natives. We can't talk for the native Latinos or the Mexicans, people of the West, people of the South. Hey, that's their story to tell. But Black people are going to tell you straight up. Look at our past leaders. Like, they have been saying this same shit before we was even born. Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, Kwame True. They have been saying the same shit over and over and over. So,
and a lot of people, well, a lot of people who are talking about things like the deportations and things like that, I'm like, do y'all not remember the Chinese Exclusion Act? Do y'all not remember the Japanese internment camps? Do y'all not remember the Manifest Destiny, where they actually wiped out or tried to whitewash the Native American population? Do you not remember Jim Crow?
Yeah.
This is what America is. It's just some of y'all haven't felt it yet, and now you're starting to feel the sting of which people like myself, Rome, Sabby, and Nick, we know all too well, because we've been dealing with it ever since we were born.
Americans are like children. They, like, if you catch a kid up and they just close their eyes and they think if they don't see you or it just goes away. It don't happen. It don't hurt them. But it don't. That's not reality. You can't just close your eyes to some of the most important shit that's been going on in our lifetime. Some of the most important movements been happening. Some of the most important protests have been happening. And when our kids look back on this shit, they're gonna be like, holy fuck, I see why this shit got burnt the fuck down. I see why these people overthrew their capitalists. If we ever get that far, hopefully we do. But
and not to discount, what a lot of poor white people have went through, because of course you guys also have your battles too, like the Battle of Blair Mountain, right? You guys have had to deal with this fascism as well. It's been heavier on some of us more than it has been on others. But I say all that to say that it's been here. It's not like, oh, we're becoming fascist. No, it's been that way.
You live in a capitalist society. What the fuck do y'all want? What do y'all want? What do you expect? You live in a capitalist society. You live in a society that put profit over human lives. You live in a society that gives you insurance instead of care. You understand me? And I'm like, always say this shit, but you are not seen as a person. You are not seen as a person in a capitalist society. This is why you have insurance, because you are a thing, like a car or a boat or a house.
Property.
You are property to the state, and your kids are property to the state. And once you die, they don't inherit no wealth. You know what they inherit? Your debts. They inherit your debt. You are not a fucking person to America or any fucking corporation at that. Look at all these corporations right now that's being caught up with all these illegal workers and what they are doing. Instead of letting these illegal workers go about their business and go fuck home or go find another job, they call ICE on them. Coca-Cola just did this. Just rounded up all their illegal workers and said, hey, we can't, the government says that they about to start cracking down, so we got to get rid of y'all. And they got rid of them. They got rid of them, man. But
you know, it's funny, Ron. In the statement of we are just property to them, they're more willing to designate us as property, but they're willing to designate personhood to corporations.
man.
Yep, absolutely, Joe Anthony. All right, let's go to the next super chat. Thank you so much for radical leftist extremists, says corporations are soulless monsters who would rather throw away tens of thousands of dollars of new merchandise instead of donate. I'm a dumpster diver. Yep, I actually heard about what Amazon was doing. Like even brand spanking new TVs, like 4K TVs, if they didn't sell them all, then they would just trash it and throw it away. It's crazy. Thank you so very much to Janice Anderson for being a channel member for 20 months. Says it's like 25 to 29% voting age. Over 40 don't vote. Chris C says when they say capitalist innovates, just say they innovate at finding new ways to royally F you. Props to this roundtable. Thank you very much to Chris C. Appreciate it so very much. Roger Meadow says, I got to get in contact with NTA guy. How do I get in contact with him? Also, Rome, did you get a chance to read my CBI ideas for Michigan? If so, what did you think?
I read a couple of them. I've been a little busy with everything out here, but I like what I see so far. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to switch up a couple of things, but I'm gonna try to get back to those. Try to see if me and Zarek can go over some stuff, and I want to get back to you with some real answers and a couple of questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much to John Kemper. Says the military is loaded with green card holders. David Nathan says, how is IPAC not treason? That is a beautiful question, David. It is treason, and yet it is accepted. But of course, this is the same country that did Operation Paperclip, where we actually took Nazis and many of them Nazi scientists, and we absorbed them into our government and even placed them in government positions like in NASA. And
not only is this a country that's controlling our politics, this is a country that has attacked us, and took the blame for multiple attacks in America. What was that? USS Liberty? They bombed that. Yep. And yeah, so if they say China is a threat to America, and let's say if China was funding some of our politicians, they'd get rid of them. If China had an organization in America where they was funding our politicians and making sure that people who put their interests first was in office, stayed in power, they would get rid of them. But when it's Israel, it's a different fucking story.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Natalie Williams says Buckley versus Vallejo conflated money with an individual's unlimited free speech. Citizens United made corporations individuals. So thank you very much for that clarification, Natalie Williams. From the Rumble side, ChatterX says, simply speaking, fascism is a radical form of capitalism. The ugly faces shows in times of inevitable crisis, while keeping the veneer of democracy in between.
Yes.
So, absolutely. I mean, what they say? Fascism is. Fascism is just imperialism turned inward.
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, that's what it is, And now they're working on extracting wealth out of people within the homeland instead of outside of the homeland, or they're trying to do double duty right now because this country is really on its last leg. I see this country on its way out. Professor Richard Wolff has been also sounding the alarm about this country being on its way out for a while now. So it's over. It's over. It's over now. Move over. It's my turn now. It's over. The game's shut down. Sorry.
And we gotta prepare ourselves because yes, it's good to see America crumble, but a lot of innocent people are going to lose their lives, their livelihood, their loved ones, their communities, their homes, and in the wake of this. So we have to make sure we build some type of safety net for the everyday people. There's a lot of working class people out there that do not deserve what is coming. A lot of people don't even understand what is happening right now. So, with America becoming outcast and a new world order is on its way, especially with BRICS and all these alliances that's basically shutting us out. We have to make sure that our people is taken care of. We got to make sure our people can eat. We got to take back our neighborhoods, and this is why I don't just say grow some food. I say take over some land. What I'm saying? I say do some guerrilla farming. Like just go out there and take some land. Take it, because that's what they have done. That's the only way that they got it, is by taking it. So I say take back the land, take back your communities. You know what I'm saying? Get your affairs in order, because it's about to be a fucking rough road. Like, we think it's rough now. People can't find no jobs now. People can't find no houses now. Imagine when these corporations actually fall. Imagine America actually falling and these corporations crumbling. A lot of people is gonna lose it, man. We're gonna see a lot of deaths. We're gonna see a lot of suicide, and we gotta make sure that those people we meet those people halfway, at least halfway, with some type of solution. And that's how we're gonna rebuild. We always say rebuild from the ashes, but you gotta remember the shit gotta burn first. And a lot of motherfuckers ain't gonna be able to stand in that fire. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, definitely. So with that, everybody, please like, share, and subscribe. Check to see if you're still subscribed as well, because YouTube has been doing some trimming. That's the best way I can put it. So thank you very much to check to see and make sure you're subscribed. With that, Rome, we're done. We out.
Oh yeah, all right, y'all. Be smooth. I'm not a crook.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.